Hello, my name is Courtney. I am the artist behind LittleRavenInk, and I am so very glad that you've stopped by my little channel on day 14 of Junk Journal January 2023 with the lovely Meg Journals. Now, I had the honor of being asked by Meg to join in with the fun. I have watched this challenge from afar quite a lot. I've never participated, but I do love the prompt lists that come out. So when she asked if I'd be willing to jump on the bandwagon and do a video for you guys, I was honored. So here I am today working on my prompt from the day. Now, I have been out of junk journaling for a little while. I have quite a few junk journals under my belt, and I like to journal in the junk journal style, but normally in notebooks. My style is very scrappy, very collagey. I like to mix and smash together photos, artwork, drawings, journaling, you name it. My style is where art and life collide. And so I decided to bind myself up a journal for documenting little trips, things that are a little bit special, but not huge where they need an entire insert devoted to them. And so I thought that I would bind one up for this prompt in particular, because I did take a little trip up the mountains with my husband to Blackheath, which is a little town in the Blue Mountains where I used to live actually many moons ago, and we went and visited a few little places. So I thought that I would take you along for the ride to Blackheath and also talk about what I want to do and how I want to attack this prompt. Now, when I think of from the day, I definitely think instantly of ephemera and things that you can collect from your day and what you can include in your journals. Now, we all love ephemera, and sometimes it's a little bit hard when you're going on such a small trip that it is hard to find bits and pieces from that day that you can commemorate. Now, some of the things that I love to pick up are little pamphlets and business cards and things like that. Packaging from purchases that you've made. This was actually a receipt of something that I picked up while we were out. Postcards. Some little shops like to have little freebies at the door, and I obviously, in every place that we went, I picked up as much ephemera as I could possibly grab. And also packaging. I picked up some candles for our lounge room, and I kept the beautiful gift bag that came in. This is a stunning little candle store, and I absolutely love it. The Blue Mountains is very close to my heart. My two best friends live up there, and I love Blackheath. I used to live in Blackheath, and I just have very, very fond memories. So I do like to get there as often as I can, but they're not major trips. They're little tiny day trips, sometimes only a few hours, because it is, quite a bit of a drive to get up to the mountains and so on and so forth. Now, I kind of want to have a quick little chat about big trips. I have a couple of journals in the works at the moment. One is in pieces because I am still building it, and one is in a journal. But from the day and from the trip, there are so many things that you can pick up for your journals. And obviously, if you're doing a really big trip that's more than a little outing, getting ephemera is a little bit more easy. So this is currently the book that I am working in for a Japan trip that I took with my girlfriends before COVID. It's quite a long time ago, but some of the things that I have picked up from the day, let me just reiterate my prompt over and over so you know what I'm doing, is definitely tickets and stuff from the suitcase. You can pick up so many bits and pieces, and little cards as well, and postcards, ephemera, all that sort of thing. Maps and pamphlets. Always be on the lookout for things that you can pick up that are free, and of course all the bits and pieces that come along with that sort of thing. So grabbing little bits and pieces, ticket stubs, ephemera. You can cut up things. I really enjoy grabbing tags of things I've purchased and turning them into tabs. So that was a purchase. Little bookmarks and things that I've picked up that I thought would look great. Stamps. So as you can see, this is very much in the works. It's a slow goings because it was such a epic trip that I have had such a fun time journaling about it, and I love it. using your purchases as photographs and then turning them into tabs. I will talk a little bit about that in our little video. But as you can see, there is so much ephemera that I still have to go. I haven't even documented Disney. I even picked up one of the little Macca's bags when we grabbed a cheeseburger because it was all in Japanese. There are just so many bits and pieces that you can grab that you can use and have fun with from these trips, and it's just a fun way to document. One of the other ones that I thought would be interesting to you guys is little origami things that were on the table and different currencies. Sometimes I like to keep some of the currency from that trip and then just add it in as a tip in. And I think I've got like little ticket stubs and things from the Ghibli Museum, which they're like little film things. You always, as a journaler, are looking out for bits of ephemera that you can use in your journals. And sometimes when there's not that much ephemera, you can make it work. So what I mean by that is I will take lots of photos as well. And so I've printed out some of the photos that I took from the day that we went up to the mountains. We visited the Victory Theatre Antique Centre, which is one of my favorite places to go in Blackheath. It is this huge building that is devoted to lots of little tiny antique stalls. So lots of people have little stalls. They're not manned stalls, they're just like little sections all throughout the building, and you can pick up things and then go to the front counter and buy them. And so they're constantly changing. Like, I've been a couple of times and I haven't seen the same thing twice. I feel like it was completely different stuff the next time. So I did pick up the little pamphlet, and I decided to print out a little map on clear sticker paper so that I can layer that down as an element on my page. I only had this tiny little map here to go off, so I went online and looked for a map that I could use and then print out, because I couldn't actually find a map on the day. I did look for one, but on the day I couldn't. So generating your own ephemera is definitely something you want to do. Now, one of the things that I picked up on my trip was I picked up a little Christmas mug from one of the kitchen stores in Lura. And I will definitely take a photo of this and use that and create a element on my page. So I'm incorporating some of the things that I purchased from that day. And I also, in the little antique store, picked up this tiny little basket. And I'll also take a photo of that up against a white wall and then cut it out, because I love to collage. So there are things that you can do to almost manufacture ephemera if you don't have a lot of things from that trip that you want to document. You can always use your photos as a way to use ephemera, and you can definitely do things like printing out maps and stuff like that if you couldn't find any when you're going on that trip. I really enjoy using maps as a way to layer. So let's have a quick look at my junk journal that I bound for these little trips. I have a couple little trips that I want to document, but I thought I would show you my journal first, and I will just be documenting the Blue Mountains trip. But I think that having a journal devoted to little trips, the little forget-me-not trips, not massive extravagant holidays, but just the little outings that bring you joy, I think is a great way to document those little moments, because they definitely deserve a stage as well. So I have bound my book using canvas boards, and they are my covers. Now, the binding technique I used is from Marianne Moss, dispatched from LA, and it is from her class Full Tilt Boogie. It is an older class. You get a year's access, and I have highly loved that class. I've collaged my boards with lots of different photographs and things, and embroidered some tabs which are holding my covers on. And I have a mixture of paper. Let me zoom out a little bit for you. Lots of different scrapbooking paper and magazines and just odds and ends, old photographs. I've sewn things in. I've got pages that are just like oddball bits and pieces, scrapbook paper. I have uneven pages because I really like how that looks. And I try to mix some color and some vintage because I kind of jump between the two styles. I know one of the reasons why Meg called me on to work in the challenge, sorry, I'm a little bit tongue-tied, is because I like to use a lot of color, and I know a lot of junk journals are very antique and vintage, and I kind of glide between the two. My normal journaling style is very colorful and bright and whimsical, so I tried to add a whole lot of that into this journal with a mixture of color and vintage, bold prints. I wanted to kind of clash things together, lots of different sizes, different odds and ends, different papers. I am going to have a blast in this journal. I tried to do a little bit of pattern with some grids, with some sort of spots to do more journaling, and all that jazz. So you can see I have lots of different signatures, different paperweights. I've got some folded out pages, brightly colored, bold, whimsical, some neutrals, some original paintings that I've just cut down. You name it, it's in here. Some photographs from big pages that I've cut down. I have a massive journal that I was building huge A3 pages, and I decided to cut some of those down and to bind them into this journal. So this is like a little card from like many Christmases ago where you would buy a book for this age group. So I actually donated the book that I bought to the Japanese bookstore, but I grabbed one of these cards as a memento. And that is where we are, and that is the back. So it's pretty big, it's pretty crazy, but I'm excited to get on board. Now I will do this in speed and then I'll pop in with a voiceover. If there's anything that I want to explain to you or give you ideas for, I will definitely come out of speed and chat to you a little bit. I don't want to keep you here forever. I know you're probably busting to get into your junk journals and to be journaling. I'm not going to do anything on my front page. I am going to go straight into this spread. I think this very much captures the feel and the vibe of the trip itself, because there was so much color and so much vintage history in the actual trip that we took. So I am going to get journaling. One of the things that I grabbed and I like to do is the Traveler's Notebook have these inserts that are for, I think, photographs. I think it's a photo album one, but I like to pull them apart and I use them for business cards. So I'm going to chop this down and use this as a tip in to pop in some of the business cards that I picked up from that day, because I want to display them as ephemera. And so I've got one for the antique place. I've got one for where we picked up coffee, and I've got one for where we picked up some bakery goods. I think I've got a picture of hubby having his pie. It's actually a really, really beautiful little bakehouse. We did go, and I've got Moon Tree, and I've got Teddy Sinclair, which is a beautiful leather place, and their business cards are just stunning. Hubby picked up an extra card of the bakehouse because he didn't see me pick up one. He is also the one that found the little pamphlet with the map on it. I've trained my husband very well to pick up ephemera at all places just in case, which is always a nice little thing. So grab your journals if you want to journal along with me, and let's get started. First thing I want to do is I want to layer that clear sticker paper over this photograph, because I want it to be a focal point, and I have a love affair with layering things, transparency, overlays, you name it. If I can make something look like an art piece in my journal, I will do it. I did consider laying the sticker onto my actual giant page itself, but I knew that it would get lost amongst all the other bits and pieces that I wanted to add to this page, so I wanted to make it a focal point. So I printed out one of my favorite photos, which was like this beautiful lit up cherry blossom tree, and all these umbrellas hanging from the ceiling. There are so many cool things hanging from the ceiling in this antique store. It's almost as if you're upside down. I don't know, it's very magical, and I always take photos of the ceilings when I come to this place because it's always changing. Now, using clear sticker paper means that I can see some of that photograph through. I did have issues getting it down. I felt like I was contacting school books and having such a hard time. But in the end, it's fine. It works out. You don't really notice the couple of bubbles that it has. It is all good. But I just love the overlay feeling of having that map on top of that photo. It really just sort of made it a little bit more unique. And like I said, manufacturing ephemera and focal points in your journaling is one of the greatest things that you can do for your journal spread. I love this pocket page. I love using these in my junk journals, and they're one of my favorite things to use because I love the effect that all the different business cards look together. I don't know, the typography, the colors, all of it. So I always make sure that these types of pages are like a tip in that I can see instantly and don't get overlaid too much, because I love how they look. They're like little photographs. I don't know, there's something about it. But in order to make this tip in work and look a bit less straight, I have a thing with straight lines. I always try and make things overlaid. I like seeing lots of different levels to my page, so a background layer, something overlaid that, something overlaid that. So I decided to start working those layers into the page whilst also still making sure that all the elements that I want are front and center, and just really enjoying them. I didn't want to waste that little Blackheath logo on my sticker paper, so I decided to layer that over the photograph that I took of the sky and some of the trees, because I love it. It's layers. We like layers, my loves. We like layers. I like to use scrap bits of paper and ripped edges to frame photographs because it softens those straight edges. I also like to overlay stickers and washi tape onto those straight edges so that nothing looks harsh. Like I was mentioning before, I'm not a big fan of straight edges. If I can make something look like it's been part of the page and not just stuck on top, I feel that is a win in my book. I like my pages to look like all the elements are interacting with each other and talking to each other, instead of it being like this is stuck here, this is stuck there. I like overlaying things with stickers and papers and washi tape, doodling, you name it. And one of the other things I like to do is cut out some of my photographs. I mentioned that the two purchases that I made, the basket and the cup, are things that I wanted to photograph and then cut out so that I've got a little bit of dimension and a little bit of shape and visual interest to the page instead of having a whole heap of square photographs. I love also adding photographs as tabs, which you're about to see here. I don't love the straightness of that tip in. So in order to change the way that it looks, I want to add all my sort of cut out pieces and just give it lots of extra layers. I am cutting out some collage sheet elements to back some of those photos so that if I want to, the back side when you flip that page is also visually appealing, and it also gives me a little bit more room to journal if I see fit. To soften that straight edge, I'm using my tiny attacher to attach the photograph of hubby eating his pie next to the business card of the bakehouse, and then I also grab my basket picture to layer on top where the antique store is. I love the sort of curved edge of the basket, that it's not straight. I don't know, I have an aversion to straight edges, and it's probably because I can't actually rule a straight line, even with a ruler. I married a civil engineer and I get him to draw my straight lines because I cannot. I try and decide whether I want to include the receipt of the basket that I purchased. I did consider stapling it to there, but it just didn't work. So I end up stapling it to the page because I want it to like work on that page as well. And I just love that the receipt is like a thin paper. It's just all about all the different textures. But I am just enjoying myself. I do alter this piece of ephemera later on in the video so it doesn't stay this way, and I mention changing ephemera to suit your needs a little bit later on, and I'm just going to reiterate that now because we are in charge of how our journals work for us, and sometimes our ephemera likes to take charge, and I am very much of the mindset of you're in control, and if something's not working and you think that changing it a little bit could work for you better, then change it. It's not going to be the end of the world if your ephemera is changed. I definitely enjoy working the puzzle pieces of the ephemera. That's kind of the joy for me. I look at all the things that I've got, that I've collected, that I've photographed, and I try and go, okay, so how do these puzzle pieces come together? What can I do? What needs changing? I'll trial things. Things may work and things may not. And so that little pamphlet from the antique store wasn't working for me, and I do change it slightly in the end of the video. Something that I love to do is when I have ephemera that I want to shine and not get lost in, I guess, the hustle and bustle of washi tape. Sometimes one of my most used things is clear sticker, not clear sticker tape, clear just normal tape. And it is a way for me to attach tip-ins or photographs. Sometimes if you've got a photo that's got quite a lot going on, and adding some washi tape to the side means you would cut off the image and you would just be interrupting the flow of what you're using. So sometimes when I have stuff that I want to shine and I don't want to get lost, or I have something that's really close up, so I want that image to really be seen, I will use clear tape to tip it in. And so I actually pulled my business card holder off and used clear tape to adhere it as well for the same reason. I left some of the original tape there. Same with the tip in. I didn't want to layer over the logo, so I just used some clear tape on the back side to give it a bit more stability whilst also still not being interrupted with the flow. So always have some clear tape in your arsenal. I tend to use it quite a lot when sticking things. I even stuck a bit here because this little basket wants to go rogue and come off, and so I just stuck it there to help it. So I really love playing with layers and textures and things that are overlapping and interactivity with my pages. It's something that I really love doing, and so I'm always trying to figure out ways in which I can use my photographs as an element in my journals. I highly recommend using photos in your journals. It's one of my favorite things to do because the photos that you take is your way of showing your day. It's like looking through your eyes, and I know that we take so many photos, but a lot of them don't end up anywhere except in our camera rolls. So I think one of the best things that you can do for your journals is definitely print those photos and get them in to your journals. I mean, I've got more than enough photographs to sink a battleship for this journal spread, and some of them won't end up in this journal. Actually, I will quickly just chat about an overspill journal. If you've got more ephemera from trips that you have been collecting, I have been putting all my bits and pieces into an extra notebook, an overflow of postcards, packaging, things that haven't made it into my normal journals. This is definitely where I go towards this overspill journal, and so any of these photos that don't make it into the spread will definitely be siphoned out through other journals. But I'd rather have more ephemera than I need than not enough. And so even with like manufacturing ephemera, like layering the map over this photograph, even though my sticker paper wanted to be horrible for me, I just think it gives an extra layer. You're creating miniature artworks in your journals by altering your ephemera. That is something I also highly recommend. If your stuff is not working for you, alter it, change it, shift it, make it work for you. This is your journal and you get to be the boss of what happens. And so I really like doing that, like including purchases from a day out, obviously photographing them and cutting them out and giving a different sort of more collage edge is something I really love to do. And especially when it comes to purchases, I could definitely layer this down and then draw a big steam bubble and use it as a journaling space. Like, there are just so many things that you can do and use with your ephemera. Using I even considered with the map actually having location dots, like the little pins, and dropping them out towards the business cards. There is just so much you can do. So what I tried to do was to layer up some of the images that corresponded to the business cards. Obviously on the back it won't be the same. I don't think I'll take a picture of the candles because I just don't think it's necessary. I am considering popping this here. I did back my photographs with some paper so that I could use those as extra journaling spots if I so wished, or I can just layer in some extra bits and pieces. If you've got photos that you have too much going on in the background, then cut out the element that you want to highlight. So with the cup, I photographed me holding the mug up against a wall. As you can see, I'm wearing the same top. I did it just before. Same with like buildings and things. If you don't want all the extra, I sort of cut the people off a bit. You could definitely cut the building out. I always love doing that. Sometimes you want the picture that you took to shine and not all the background, especially if you're taking photos in a populated area. Obviously during certain times of the year this place is absolutely packed. We went during Easter, like the Easter break, Good Friday I think, or no, Easter Saturday, and this place was absolutely packed with people. So being able to chop and change your ephemera to suit where you are going. So I would definitely just throw something like this over the top. I'm a big fan of layering different sizes and textures and not having everything straight edged. I like putting things off center. It just is a little bit visually appealing. It might not be for everyone. I have a hard time doing straight lines. I have a really hard time with straight lines. So I tend to alter my ephemera to be all off center so it looks like a design choice instead of a lack in skill. Even with a ruler, I can't seem to, for the life of me, be able to do anything straight at all. So we've got little bits of ephemera left to go. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to incorporate the bag because it's quite humongous. That's the only thing. I might actually cut out the packaging itself. I did consider taping it in or stapling it in to work as a pocket, but I even think it is just quite a thick, good quality bag that it just might be too much. So I think I might cut the bag up so that I can use some of the logos and strips and things, because it's double-sided. It works beautifully for that, and I can get rid of like the really hard bottom and the handles. So we're going to alter that because it's not fitting our needs. And then I've stapled in the ephemera from the antique center, and I folded it so that it fits in the page whilst also still being off center. I'm not quite sure if I will put the extra like bakery thing in. I think I might just pop that into my other journals because I don't really need two. And then I've got extra photos. So let's see what we've got. We've got the antiques sign, which is, as you can see in the footage, it is quite a huge place. And so maybe I will add it to this top picture up here, and then add some brown paper or something on top there to have a little journaling spot. I want to add some journaling spots as well. I've got little photos of little nooks and crannies that I really love. This place is like a maze. It's just you couldn't, there's no way you could see everything in a day. It's just filled with whimsy and just cool stuff. And I really love this big photo, which is why I printed it really large. And I'm wondering if it gets lost kind of here. I'm wondering if maybe it won't matter. I'll have to put it under here because it will, otherwise there's no real place to put it unless I turned it into a tip in itself, kind of lay it over here, which does work. I kind of like how that looks with the graphics and stuff underneath, so maybe we can do that. I might actually layer it on top of a piece of acetate. That is another tip that I wanted to talk about, is when you've got lots of ephemera, I like to play with transparency and things like that. So I like to grab transparencies and things that I can layer stuff over the top of and build things on top of transparencies because they just seem to work really nicely. So I've got a background sheet here that I really love the look of, and putting it on top of one of these just really helps. It helps it not feel so cramped and cluttered, or it could do the opposite for you depending on what kind of style you like. I really enjoy adding things on top of transparency so you can still see what's underneath whilst also building a block or a home for a piece of ephemera. So I will decide whether I do that. I have a nice background here that will work perfectly, and like I said, you can still see like hubby under here, and it just adds another textural layer, which I am always here for. I just like things to be interactive and to really work for you. I don't know, there's something about adding 20 million layers to a journal page so that if you are looking at my journal, you would have so much fun pushing and pulling and turning tabs and flipping tip-ins. I love doing it, and I know that people that are journalers really love that interactivity, that tactile nature of a journal spread. But yeah, I just thought I'd pop in and have a little quick chat halfway through. We're getting there. We're slowly building our bits and pieces. I obviously need to do some journaling. I would also like to stamp a few things, and I think I have some cotton stickers somewhere because there was some beautiful cotton in the actual shop, and so I like to try and find elements in my stash that kind of represents things that I saw or did or had. So I'm definitely thinking, I'm trying to figure out where I remember seeing the cotton stickers last, and if not, I can obviously sub in something else to layer around here, because I feel like there needs to be some overlays, whether it be floral stickers or things like that, or some stamping. It just feels a little bit stark at the moment, so we will work with what we've got. I love using different types of font and lettering to attract attention within my journal spreads. I like giving things titles and to add extra bits and pieces. So if I want to label a photograph, I turn it into a tip-in. I like using my own messy handwriting to label things as well, and using different pen weights, stamps. Just text is such an underrated thing that you can use in your journals to create interest, and like stamping on top of your photographs to make them more unique and different. I don't know, there is just some magic in typography that I think doesn't get enough attention and can definitely make or break a piece of ephemera, or draw attention to it, or just like give something a little bit of oomph. These are from the Traveller's Factory. They come in the like planner sets that you can get each year, and they're all themed, and they're like a clear transparency but also work as a pocket. And I love using these to use as a pocket to add extra photos or ephemera whilst also still being able to see them, because it is a transparent pocket. I didn't want it to get lost against all that scrapbooking paper, so I just glued down a nice piece of grid paper so that it could still be seen, and I really liked how this worked. I had a few extra photos that I didn't want to put in other journals, so I decided to use them in this pocket and then just add a couple of creative tabs so they look like they were meant to be that way. And I just, like I said, transparency, layers, texture, you name it, we got it in this journal spread, and I am having an absolute blast creating it. I just wanted to throw in some of the pattern work that was already on the packaging from my Moontree bag, because I have these sort of excess spaces that I have a problem with leaving blank. I like to incorporate those patterns over the top of my page and journaling spots. Like I mentioned at the start of this video, I like my pieces to talk to each other, to interact with each other. And one of the ways that I love doing this is by doodling over the top of those things. That way I'm connecting those pieces and also filling a much needed gap on my page. More is more when it comes to journaling with me. I love the use of using a very bold tip pen to add those doodling things as well. I did find that my journaling got a little bit lost on that grid paper, and if I was to do this again, I would probably do a lighter grid paper for the journaling so that my words weren't fighting for attention with the grid lines. But I really like using bold line work to either create borders or page elements, or to draw attention to something such as a photograph. Using different pen weights, or pen widths I should say, to do that is a really great way to add something different to the page when everything is trying to do so much. Using that black pen is just a great way to frame things whilst also being pretty to look at. Alright, my loves, I am pretty much done with my journal spread. Let's just zoom out a tiny bit there. I added some, as you saw, some extra drawings to sort of bring all the pieces together. I am a maximalist when it comes to journaling. I really love layering and adding as much as possible, and it may be too much for some people, but I really enjoy it. And I guess that's the whole point of journaling, is in developing your own style, and you know what you like, you know what you don't like. One day I hope and aspire to be a minimalist, but today is not that day or anytime soon. So I added some of the leaf decoration from the Moontree bag just to add in these extra spaces. I just felt that I didn't want to add a huge piece of paper to the page in order to do journaling, and I really like my journaling pieces to layer over the top of each other and interact so that it makes it look more cohesive. And it's something that I like to do with like ripped paper. I like to layer that over the top, as well as adding some adding some drawings over the top of multiple pieces so that they are almost brought together with that graphic. So I do like doing that quite often. And so I just mimicked the moon tree design there. I've got layered bits and pieces. Because this was a straight edge photograph, I decided something I like to do is to rip up bits of washi tape and create a border that way. And obviously adding background pieces of ephemera like painted papers and just little odds and ends that sort of bring in some of the colors that are in the photos. I do try and stick to a color palette, even though it may not look like it sometimes. I also really like text as a visual representation of things, and titles and things like that, especially if a lot is going on. I added this off camera where I put a new mug, added a sticker over the top of these two to sort of bring them together as well. I also added some little tree stickers down here because I really love the trees in the mountains, and so I try and represent that. I did some doodling around here and colored it in to sort of give it a little bit more of a stable home instead of having all these flowers in the background scrapbook paper. I do find that having scrapbook paper that is patterned a challenge to work with sometimes, whereas I don't want to cover it up because I've obviously included it because I like it, and I love this. I think it's Maggie Holmes paper with the florals in the background, and I didn't want to lose all of that by throwing like a big piece of paper, a big photo or something over the top. So I kind of just added some doodling and then added some colored pencil to still have some of those flowers peek through because I think they're beautiful. And when we went, it was spring when we went up the mountain, so the flowers were all in bloom, especially the drive up the mountain. Some of the flowers that were like growing wild on the sides of the roads were beautiful. So I kind of like having the little peaks in there. I used my red tape to sort of tape down, not like faux tape down the journaling spots. I went with a white grid paper instead of a brown to let it stand out a little bit because I have quite a lot of brown already in the spread. So I always want to sort of make the journaling stand out because it is important. I haven't put anything on the backs of these little bits except for a little sticker. I may come back and add some extra photos if I print them out. I didn't expect to use all the photos that I did. And as you saw, I cut down my little pamphlet piece because it was just overtaking everything, and I had so many other things I wanted to add to this page, and I knew that it would be fine that I could add it extra in that pocket. This is from the Travelers Company, like you saw. I love these clear little pockets, although sometimes I do feel like the ephemera gets a little bit stuck in there, and then adding the extra bits that don't really have homes, and I'll add some journaling to that later. I actually completely forgot that I had journaling space on the back of this one. I like adding oddball tags and things to the tops of stuff. You can make anything a tab. Basically, you can staple it, glue it, you name it. I think they add a bit of color and fun to the photographs. The extra little map that I absolutely loved from this pamphlet, I just stuck in that little thing, as well as the logo to Moontree. I've kind of left this blank because I like the color coming through, although it may, I think because you've got all these playing a part as well, it just, I didn't see the point in adding anything extra. I didn't have any photos left. I have that big postcard, but I think this postcard will end up in my overspill journal. It just couldn't work within the spread, and that's okay. That's the whole point of my overspill journal. So adding all the extra photos, I just doubled this one. And these are some of the little bits and pieces. I just left this one as a big graphic that you can see sort of peek through the ephemera. I love that, and then added some journaling down the bottom. And I really like how the spread came through and everything worked together. It is very much an indication of my style. More is more when it comes to me. And I really do like chopping and changing and getting my photos to become part of the art, and to really just have fun with composition and layering and all that sort of jazz. So I hope you've enjoyed spending time with me, and I hope to see you again soon on my YouTube channel. Enjoy the prompts for Junk Journal January and enjoy tomorrow's prompt as well. Take care. Bye.
Yesterday there was sun and there was rain, beauty in the mundane. And as the light startled our eyes, we let go of disguise. And now there's something in the air and a sparkly shimmer on our skin.